The horror genre, subgenres, and dom genres. When they are executed correctly, we get all the bloodshed, the mayhem, and all the crazy carnage chaos that our horror-centric minds could ever desire. And when they're done wrongfully, well, we want to make sure that all the bloodshed, the mayhem, and the crazy carnage chaos is inflicted upon the following filmmakers and financiers and anybody that thought any of these movies were a good goddamn idea. So let's do that. I'm Sean Redland with the 15 worst horror movies of 2025 list with some honorable mentions. All of these movies are reviewed in full on the Real Honest Movie Reviews playlist. We are entering the final stretch of 2025. It is time to put out even more end-of-year lists. I've done a few for wrestling. I've done a few for movies. I have a few more for movies planned, such as Best Horror, and best movies and worst movies, and depending on what order you watch these in, those may already be out. We will see, because time is a flat circle. That being said, let's get into the honorable mention. Shell. What the fuck was Kate Hudson doing in this? I know what Elizabeth Moss was doing in this, because she's a crazy Scientologist, and anybody involved in Scientology, you're all nuts, you all deserve to be shamed and ridiculed until you get out of that bullshit religion. That being said, Elizabeth Moss was also in the Invisible Man remake that Leigh Whannell did. Unfortunately, he also did the Wolfman or whatever the fuck it was, where Julia Garner had to slum it, and yeah, that was certainly a choice. So was Shell. Basically, it was Micro Substance. As in, the, in my opinion, best movie of 2024, but just with a bad, dark comedic spin. I mean, even though there was good dark comedy in The Substance, there was also like a shift near the end of Shell because they had to throw something else in there, and I don't know what the fuck they were going for. I just don't, it wasn't good, it wasn't funny, it wasn't horrifying at all. The Other, Malignant, but make it bullshit. Is that a spoiler? Sure. You don't have to worry about The Other. Nobody should worry about The Other, except to kick The Other to the other side and watch something other than The Other. And the fact that this is in the honorable mentions, I'm already getting this vicious, is probably a big indication of what you're going to get. Fear Street Prom Queen, after the admittedly uneven trilogy that was sort of a trilogy, but not really. The 1666 one should have been 1666 / 1993, 1994, wherever the fuck year it was. Fear Street Prom Queen returned with continuing the R.L. Stine arc, and Chris Klein was in this for some reason, a couple creative deaths, but boy, I didn't like this at all. This was a mess, and this didn't know what it wanted to be. It also had a super obvious twist. And from what I remember of the Prom Queen books, this certainly didn't honor them. But then again, Netflix is just going to put out any slop they want, so idiots like me will watch it. So we go to The Woman in the Yard. Danielle Deadwyler deserves a better agent because she has been in good movies recently. You can check out her IMDb page and see that she's been in stuff that really deserved a lot more attention than The Woman in the Yard. But it's fucking Blumhouse. At least I think it's Blumhouse. Blumhouse, in all honesty, will get blamed for a lot of projects they probably weren't involved in, but like Wolfman. But nevertheless, this was a short story stretched to like 85 minutes. It's about a woman grieving and trying to take care of her kids. And while admittedly visually kind of okay, and Daniel had a committed performance, I found this movie very annoying and very obvious. And even with the ending that left, I guess, a couple questions in the air, I just wanted this movie put in the air. Like a goddamn clay disc that you're going to shoot down. So let's get to Vicious. Can Dakota Fanning get Elle Fanning's manager's number or agent's number? Because Elle Fanning was in Predator Badlands as well as Sentimental Value, while Dakota was in this. And Dakota Fanning's a good actress. She just wasn't able to carry this goddamn thing about a box. And Catherine Hunter, why do they have her? She's a funny actress. She's also extremely short, which proves Randy Newman correct. But this is basically taking place at like 2 locations because that's how cheap this Paramount Plus original was. And it was really bad. Not scary and just awful. So, let's get to number 15. Until Dawn. Oh boy, another video game movie. That's what we need. Look, there have been other video game movies in the interim that have actually been pretty entertaining. We have the Super Mario Bros. Movie. We have the Sonic movies. We have a few others. Until Dawn was not one of those entertaining ones. This is like the bad Silent Hill movie. I'll let you decide which one I'm talking about. I think it was Revelations. So, Until Dawn did get the actor that voiced the Doctor in the video game to play the actual character here, and Odessa Azion, however you say it, is very good. And there's that bathroom scene that was pretty funny. That's about the only time the movie came alive, ironically. But for a movie that's about resetting the day and, having to figure shit out, there isn't a lot of mystery, and there also isn't a lot of atmosphere, and there aren't a lot of scares. There's just a lot of bullshit, because Until Dawn was absolute bullshit. If we get a sequel, I will scream. Number 14, Keeper. Oh boy, Osgood Perkins will get mentioned a little bit on this list. Look, Keeper is one of the most recent entries on this list. More on that here in a little bit. But Keeper had Tatiana Maslany, I think, Maslany, however you say it, the one from She-Hulk. She's very good, and she's also very beautiful, so that doesn't hurt. But she was also in another movie that will be mentioned here briefly. But the thing about Keeper, it doesn't really add up to much. It's very obvious where it's going. There's some cool visual choices. Osgood Perkins, I have realized, maybe makes movies that just aren't for me. He has a great eye for horror visuals. He just doesn't have a great eye for horror narratives, such as Longlegs. But then again, that's probably down to Michael Monroe and the fact that movie was very overhyped. So was Keeper. They hyped it up like crazy. The filmmakers just absolutely loved it, and I didn't fucking get it at all. So let's get to number 13, The Monkey. Yeah, let's go with more Osgood Perkins stuff. Okay, it was a dark comedy in the sense it was dark. It was a dark horror in the sense it was dark. It's taking Stephen King's short story and it's expanding upon it with goofy deaths. But none of the comedy worked. I found this to be excessively overhyped. I found this more offensive than Longlegs because they hyped it up like crazy. And then I watched it and I go, okay, I'm waiting for like something. Give me something. And it didn't give me anything. Tatiana was in this as the mother. And yes, it was well shot, but the thing is you need more than that if you are going to have, a 90-minute movie, whatever it is. So between Keeper and The Monkey, I'm starting to think that Osgood Perkins may be on my shit list for directors as just somebody that's a big horror fan. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm not saying that he doesn't know what he's doing. He just maybe doesn't care about going with the norm. Oh, he's going to go over here. He's going to take a hard left. Not really his... For all the crazy visual choices that his movies make, there's a central theme and it's a straight line. There's really not a lot of stuff to branch off of. I also do want to briefly mention The Jolly Monkey. Yes, it's my list and I will mention what the fuck I want. But The Jolly Monkey was... much worse than The Monkey because at least The Monkey had a budget. Jolly Monkey didn't because it was from the asylum. It also featured incredibly terrible acting and just some bad pacing choices and bad character development. What little character there was. And it was the asylum, so it was like a one location shoot. But I just want to mention that. So let's go to number 12, The Ritual. Let's go with the visual Ritual, because this movie could have used some visuals other than muddy brown bullshit. Al Pacino, who's the same height standing up or sitting down. And yeah, it's demonic possession stuff, tries to put a different spin, and really should have just sat and spun on a guy named Barbed Wire Bat. I hated The Ritual. It was actually in my top 5, but... some other stuff knocked it down. And while, yes, The Ritual, putting a different spin on is one thing as far as the demonic possession stuff. And whether it's based on a real story or real events or not, I don't care, because this is a streaming movie that got a theatrical release. I drove in not great weather to watch this and then drove back in not great traffic to review this. So maybe that's why I'm partly upset. But no, really, anytime I just think about the fact that this movie got a theatrical release, yet there are so many others that struggle. No, The Ritual is terrible. So let's go to number 11. Him. Okay, you could argue that Him probably is more dark comedy than anything else, but there's enough horror elements, and I was really excited for this movie. I was excited from the trailer, and then I started to hear the early reviews. I'm like, you know what, critics have been wrong before, and then I sat down, and within 10 minutes I said, they were right. Got where they ever. Marlon Wayans is terrific. He really is goddamn terrific. And then you have Tariq Winters, who I thought of actually putting I Know What You Did Last Summer on this list. And I do want to say that while he tried in that, he isn't exactly having the best, 2025. Because him was a titanic disappointment. It pretty much got destroyed because of, critic and audience reception, especially critic reception. And for something that was supposed to be about football players sacrificing everything, athletes sacrificing everything, it ended up really not coming out as anything more than just a clip show version of like, ooh, cool ideas. And it was a stitched together thin narrative. And I Know What You Did Last Summer was just a really, really bad, horror sequel, requel, whatever the fuck it was supposed to be. It ignored the third one, which is probably smart. But yeah, him gets the nod just because I didn't expect much from I Know What You Did Last Summer. I expected more from him. So we go to number 10, Popeye's Revenge. One of three. Yes, three Popeye movies that have come out this year. Popeye horror movies, that is. Because ever since these characters, such as Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, by the way, doesn't get on this, despite how shit it was. Popeye's Revenge is ugly, cheap, and features some terrible goddamn camera work and some terrible acting. And I'm sorry to anybody that happens to be watching this, or anybody that watched the list, or that watched that review. Anybody that got offended, but it's like, if a movie's bad, if that's the best take that you can go with, you probably need to find something else to do. Or, in the case of the directors and the screenwriters, you need to find something fucking else to do. Because if that's your best effort, good God, y'all. Popeye's Revenge, it was like a 1 or 2 location shoot. Cheap, overuse of fog, bad special effects, bad costuming. Just everything about that was bad. The sad thing is it wasn't even the worst of these particular spin-off things, because that's number 9. Piglet, which isn't even connected to the Winnie the Pooh thing. Seriously, it's not connected to Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey or Blood and Honey 2 Electric Boogaloo. This is a totally different thing where Piglet basically is just a barbaric type killer that gets out and kills a few people indiscriminately and then gets killed at the end. Sorry, spoilers. And then the movie just ends. Also, we get unnecessarily ridiculous sex for no reason, which, don't get me wrong, there are beautiful women in this movie, but it just seemed like a bit of a ridiculous thing, especially considering by that point they were aware that shit was going south. But Piglet, ugly, boring, and just so horrifyingly bad. But again, only number 9, so let's get to it. Match is number 8. A Tubi original that, look, I admit does have some funny moments, but it's funny for all the wrong reasons. It's way too goddamn long. It's like an hour and 40 minutes and deserved to maybe be 80 minutes. And features terrible decisions. The lead actress, who tries, she really does try, but the character choices basically lead to more unnecessary deaths. And Match was just another one of these one location shoots. I mean, outside of like a few parts, we basically just center around this goddamn house that really doesn't seem any bigger than mine, so I don't understand how in the world she couldn't have found her way out within a few minutes, but that would have made for a really, short movie. But then again, it would have ended a whole lot sooner than it did. Yeah, Match is really, really bad, and I did get a little blowback, from people wondering, why I was taking it so seriously, but it's like, if you're gonna be a horror movie, such as, Please Don't Feed the Children, which admittedly probably was worse than this one, but that featured no redeeming characters. Match at least had an interesting premise about meeting some guy and doing a dating app thing, and the theme of, okay, that could be really horrifying, meeting somebody you don't know. Match just basically throws that all out the window for, oh yeah, inbred, monster cock at a couple points. Whatever. Woods of Ash. There's a kidnapping. Some people tried to stop this kidnapping that they implemented, and then horror happens. And Woods of Ash actually offended me just because the mere fact that this movie even got made is astonishing. It's 90 minutes or whatever it is. Maybe it's 80. I mean, I don't know. It felt longer than it actually was. But terrible acting, terrible scene blocking, terrible camera work. barely any material, bad decisions by everybody all around, and Woods of Ash maybe doesn't qualify as full-on horror to some people, but it does to me, and that's why I'm mentioning it here, because I'm going to knock it. And by the way, you may notice between the worst horror list and the worst movie list, and the best horror list and the best movie list, there may be a little bit of a mixture and stuff like that, because that's going to happen. When I just go with straight horror, I base it on how they are as horror movies, not just as movies. And Woods of Ash deserves probably a lot more lambasting. Like, it probably deserves to be actually beaten with sticks for simply existing. And this movie is... on Letterboxd, I think there's only a few reviews, and almost all of them are like half a star. I mean, people are like knocking it. And I recognize when there's limited resources and you have to get a horror movie made. I recognize that. And I fully understand that sometimes corners need to be cut, and you have to work with the cast you have, and you have to work with the schedule you have. And sometimes you have to go with a take that may not work all that good. But when a movie is just full of all that shit, and it doesn't even seem like you tried, can't help but knock it. So, number 6, Witchboard. Yeah, I didn't really care for the first one. It wasn't great. This was such a mishmash. It was like at least 15 to 20 minutes longer than it needed to be. And also, almost fucking forgot that it was about a goddamn witchboard, Ouija board, wild wig board. Nailed it. The possession stuff was terrible. The restaurant scene was just... so much of this movie was fraught with issues that while the cast does try and there was money put behind it, that's actually the thing that offends me the most. There was money put behind this goddamn thing, and they still fucked it up. This was in theaters for a limited time. This weekend only. Come there, 40% off. The thing is I actually almost decided to go watch this, but due to scheduling and that kind of stuff, I just couldn't catch it in theaters. Then I rented it on Amazon, and yeah, I rented it. I put money down for this, so I feel I can knock this. And if that offends anybody, particularly the director, who, look at his filmography. It's not like he's done anything good in a while, but Witchboard is just one of those terrible remakes of like something that actually got 3 movies, and the first one wasn't even that good. It was cheesy fun. And this wasn't even fun. Witchboard was just trash. Number 5, Kill Streak. One of the more recent entries. A bunch of gamers, streamers, whatever, play a game for a while and die. And then if they die in the game, they die for real. And this features some of the worst acting, the worst writing, and the worst horror that I have seen all year. The fact that this is number 5 is certainly saying something. And the fact that this is just, this is this low on the list and I'm knocking it. Yeah, don't worry. We are going to get into the meat of the matter. But Kill Streak was really, really fucking bad. You could have skipped large chunks of this movie and not missed shit. And the game looked terrible. The game didn't look like it would have passed for a PS1 game. And this is in 2025. And I don't care if this was filmed a few years before, say during the pandemic, and they did this. It was a bad movie all around. Number 4, Traumatica. Or Traumata. Traumatica. No, it's Traumatica. It tries to tell the story of how, basically trauma can haunt you and carry, you can carry it with you and eventually end up, snapping and whatever. Or at least I think that's what it was trying to say. One, it was very badly shot. It was not that well performed. And the narrative tried for like, oh, we're going to go back. We're going to, come here. We're going to go back. We're going to do this like, wrap around story. It's going to be great. And it wasn't. Traumatica was terrible. And I paid about $8 on Amazon or whatever it was just before, just after taxes to watch this because I heard varied things about it. I heard some good critical and audience stuff. I heard some bad stuff. And I'm all about cheap horror. And I figured I didn't want to wait until this hit Tubi. Because I saw the trailers and was like, okay, this isn't a film we can show you the trailer of. You just have to see it. Okay. And then I saw it and I said, well, I kind of regret watching it. And then the credits finished, and then I really regretted watching it. Because then we got into the movie where I'm like, they didn't know what the fuck they wanted to do, and it was very obvious, and it was really, really terrible. Number 3, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Yeah, fuck y'all, FNAF fans. I'm putting this up here. It could be made for you, and it also should be made into a stew, such as Jason Blum being chopped up and put in the stew, even though it would probably somehow still turn a mega profit at the box office. Currently, this film doing pretty well at the box office, which is a good thing because the first one cost $20 million, was released simultaneously on Peacock and in theaters, and ended up with 291 point something in for the worldwide box office, 137 something in the U.S. after opening with 80 million. This opened with a little bit less, and still is going to need to have a couple more good weekends to justify its, possible third movie. But the fact is if it's made for fans, that's great. But if you are going to make a movie that is going to appeal to a wider audience, you need to give them something else, and they barely had any goddamn story to go with. Elizabeth Leigh looked great. I mean, my God, beautiful woman. But, yeah, the animatronics look fine until they move. It was nice to see McKenna Grace in something again after Regretting You, and the fact that this might have actually been a worse role for her as saying something, but I'm not talking about Regretting You because this is not the worst movie list. But Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is just so bad from like every conceivable point. It's not horrifying, it's not funny, it barely has anything stitching its scenes together. I don't care about the Easter eggs, I don't care about the stuff. I just want to see something mildly entertaining, and this wasn't. Number 2, The Strangers Chapter 2. Rennie Harlin should be charged with war crimes for this. Lionsgate should be sent to the goddamn moon for this. Yeah, the studio. Just in the whole studio there. The Strangers Chapter 1 was pretty terrible. And they're doing a Chapter 3 that I guess is coming out sometime in February or March. I'm not totally sure. But that one really should go right to streaming. Because, yeah, the first one did well. I think this one did okay. But the thing is, there was no reason to do a soft reboot, requel, whatever, and expand upon the Strangers when the best part of the movie is you didn't know anything about them. When Prey at Night is starting to look good by comparison, and I didn't think Prey at Night was all that great, by the way, this just is so, so terrible. And has even less going on than the first one. Yes, the hospital scene was kind of okay. I'll admit that. But then again, given what we got for the rest of the movie, there is no way I couldn't put this high on the list. But we go to number 1, The Rule of Jenny Penn. I will make it my mission to tell people that The Rule of Jenny Penn almost killed my love of horror. I will make it a mission to tell people that if they don't make sure, if they're running a studio, they don't tell this director, writer, whatever, to never have creative freedom again until he apologizes for this movie, until he apologizes for what he did to John Lithgow, to Jeffrey Rush. And I don't mind the fact that this had to do with, showing that the staff at clinics, or retirement homes don't always take care of the old people and they're just there for a paycheck, and when they're in your care, maybe you don't care as much as you should, and there's some aloofness about it. But the thing is, this was mean-spirited for the wrong reasons. It wasn't mean-spirited with a good payoff, because the payoff fucking sucked. John Lithgow was having fun, but there was nothing to his character. The opening with Jeffrey Rush in the courtroom was fine. Unfortunately, then the movie just got worse and worse and worse. I had a special screening of this, meaning I actually saw it when it first came out and had the theater all to myself. And The Rule of Jenny Penn is exactly what you would expect a bad Shudder original to be. And that's what this was. It ended up going out on Shudder sometime after a theatrical run. I'm glad I watched it when I did, because this was actually my number 1 worst movie for a while. And another started to get in contention. But the thing is, still finalizing all that and everything, because I'm recording this before the worst list, or the worst official list. But the rule of Jenny Penn is exactly why you need like some restrictions in horror. You need some people to like hold back. It's like, yeah, have some fun and everything, but don't just be so mean-spirited for absolutely no reason, because there's nothing darkly comedic about this. There's nothing horrifying about this except that it got made. I hate this movie so much. I hate the fact that this was given the green light. Because if this is what horror is going to head in the direction of, then maybe horror shouldn't have a big 2026. So that's my worst horror movie of the year. What are yours? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Wright. Until we revisit the horror genre, subgenres, and down genres again, happy trails to you.